Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sean from sgtreport.com, and I have on the line Tara from Reality Calls, an excellent YouTube channel with 35,791 subscribers, and I have full faith and belief that after this call, she'll have many, many more, and deservedly so. Tara, how are you?
Great, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. We've been following your work and posting a lot of your videos over at thephaser.com and sgtreport.com as we follow Pizzagate, which is now being labeled by the powers that be in the mainstream mockingbirds as fake news. And what I wanted to do is bring you on and talk about some of your findings in terms of the worldwide, the global pedophile ring, which is so much larger than just Pizzagate. First, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your channel.
Oh, okay. Well, my main mission is just to help Western civilization. So when I saw Hillary Clinton was about to get into become the US president, and I thought that's going to be a disaster, we're going to have World War III, etc. I started campaigning for Trump, and that's what I've been doing the past year. As I know many other people have done, we've all worked together in the alternative media to try our best to help Trump get elected. So that's pretty much what my channel's been about recently. But my channel changes a lot depending on the many different interests that I have. So some people find that a little bit strange, but that's just how I am. I'm one of those people who is constantly finding new areas of interest and reporting on them. So at the moment we're doing a lot on Pizzagate, and Pizzagate is obviously this scandal surrounding Washington DC and certain elite persons, mainly relating to the Democratic Party, but it's not really a partisan thing, if that's the right way to say it. It's not really just about Democrats. I mean, I'm sure that there are Republicans involved as well.
Yeah. Well, I really like your channel. I admire the work you're doing there. And what is it about Pizzagate that inspired you to start researching it? And then we'll talk about the fact that it's being labeled fake news. I want to ask you if that outrages you or if you just think it's par for the course. But what inspired you to start reporting about Pizzagate in such detail?
Well, I mean, obviously when I first started researching it, I was just looking at WikiLeaks, and we didn't call it Pizzagate to start with. It was spirit cooking to start with, wasn't it? Because it was Marina Abramovich who had been in contact with John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's head of campaign, and so we were all just spent like at least 24 hours just digging up all the dirt on Marina Abramovich from the internet, and it's all this kind of like blood sacrifice and her dressing up as a Satanist witch and all this kind of stuff, which was really shocking and happened just before the election. So I felt a duty to report on this in video format, because I know not everyone's on Twitter, not everyone's on 4chan, not everyone's on Reddit. Most of the population aren't on those places. So I thought if I can get this out on YouTube, then it will have a significant impact. And I believe it did, because hundreds of thousands of people saw my video on spirit cooking before the election. And I think that a lot of them from watching that decided not to vote for Hillary Clinton, or at least I hope, because she is hiring these people who have like pictures depicting cannibalism up on their wall, that kind of thing.
Right, yeah, and you're referring to the Podestas. John Podesta specifically, I think, has that very bizarre art piece in his office of two men clothed very similarly standing over another man, and they appear to be preparing to eat him. A lot of this artwork has suggestions of cannibalism. Of course, all of the spirit cooking cakes that Marina cooks up for these parties for the elite are nude bodies. They appear to be real people, but they're cakes. And then the partygoers partake in cutting the cake and consuming the cake, which is evidently an allegory for eating people. And I don't understand why anybody would want to have a party with a cake that looks like a nude person. And then, have you noticed too that they like to cut out the heart first, and then they'll cut out the genitals, and then they'll eat the rest of the cake. It's really disturbing. And as we talk about this global pedophile ring, it really gets very, very, very dark, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think why a lot of people don't realize how horrible what they're doing is because all the while that they're doing it, they're laughing, they're joking, they're smiling in the pictures. And I think that we just don't realize what psychopaths these people are. Psychopaths have a known phenomenon called duper's delight. They love to push in their victim's face what they're doing and be lying about it and get away with it. This gives them this kind of like gleeful high, and they can't help but grin about it. So when I see that grin on the face of these people, whether it's on the face of James Alefantis while he's giving an interview with Megyn Kelly. Right. Sorry, is that her name?
Yep, I just wrote that down. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Right, yeah. That kind of gleeful grin when they're talking about whether or not he's a paedophile. Really? Really? Is that appropriate? No. Is it appropriate to have that kind of massive grin on your face while you're eating, part of a body, or a cake body, which is basically simulated cannibalism? Right. Why are they so happy about this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
No. Why do they pay like thousands and thousands of dollars to set up these events? Why wouldn't they just have a normal cake?
Yeah, it is extremely disturbing, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? Because I sort of jumped right into the cake talk and the cannibalism, and I think what needs to be said as it relates to the mainstream media disparaging this research and calling Pizzagate fake news. Have you noticed they've provided absolutely no evidence when they go about their debunking? Even in their short little news stories, they'll just immediately jump to the conflation that researchers suggest that Hillary Clinton is running child trafficking out of the back of a pizza shop. That's not what any of us have said. And you'll also notice that as it relates to the Podestas, the mainstream mockingbirds, when they try to debunk Pizzagate so unprofessionally as they have done, because they're providing no research and no actual debunking of the points we've made, they won't mention Andrew Breitbart's 2011 tweet about John Podesta, in which he said how Prague guru John Podesta isn't a household name as world-class underage sex slave op cover-upper defending unspeakable dregs escapes me. To me, that is evidence of research that needs to be done about John Podesta, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think Andrew Breitbart was evidently onto this well before any of us even thought of it or heard about it.
Right.
And unfortunately, he's dead now. But it would be awesome if we could actually have him here. I think we'd be doing double what we're doing right now in terms of the amount of reach and the amount of people that are being woken up to this kind of stuff if he was on our side right now. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But in terms of what the mainstream media are doing, what people don't realize, the mainstream media are being drip-fed their narrative by a behind-the-scenes organization called Media Matters, which just so happens to be run by a guy called Andrew Brock, who is good friends with the owner of the main pizza shop, Comet Ping Pong.
Right. Is it David Brock?
David Brock. Did I say his name right?
Yeah, I think you said Andrew, but yeah, David Brock and Alefantis, James Alefantis, used to be in a relationship together. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were in a relationship together, but it appears they're still good friends. It's not like they're not talking to each other or anything.
Right.
They still go to the same parties. They still link to each other's websites and, share the same friends and things like this. So, yeah, it's just like come on. Okay, so it's basically having the fox guard the hen house. Right. It's like, yep. How on earth would you expect for mainstream media to actually even report on this stuff honestly, when an organization like Media Matters literally gets people fired for saying anything that they don't like in Fox, in CNN. They can have those anchors taken down if they say anything that Media Matters doesn't like. So it's a controlled media, and it's controlled by the very people involved in Pizzagate. So the fact that this whole fake news narrative has taken off at absolutely unprecedented levels, just exactly at the same time that Pizzagate went viral, is not an accident. It's very obvious what's going on here to anyone who looks. And it's, I get people leaving me comments saying, well, why isn't the mainstream media reporting on this then if it's so bad? Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. The mainstream media is owned by the people doing this.
No, that's 100% right. And, it's so important to drive the point home that you said Media Matters is drip feeding the mainstream media on the talking points. And what people need to understand, and of course our listeners do, we're so lucky to have an alternative media out there. There's so many of us out there that cannot be touched by media matters. What you and I both know is the mainstream media is there to be gatekeepers. And let's just get back to that Megyn Kelly-James Alefantis interview, because it was so beyond the pale. I mean, it was literally a PR opportunity. It wasn't an interview. And I guess my question for you is, if you had been in Megyn Kelly's chair, what are some of the questions you'd have asked James Alefantis? And I'll just throw out one. I would love for James Alefantis to explain what the cement-walled room with the cement ceiling, with the comment #killroom, and then the other comment #murder, which I believe was from him, Jimmy Comet himself. What did that mean, and why did he write it? What are some of the questions you would have asked?
Well, honestly, I would be shaking in my boots, because just looking at that guy really gives me the creeps. I would not want to be anywhere near him. He actually really scares me just looking at him. But if I had a question for him, it would be, where are the bodies?
Right.
Sorry, I don't really have a very strategic way of, because these psychopaths, they just lie anyway. They absolutely outright lie. It doesn't matter what you ask them. They'll come up with some explanation. If you ask him, so why are your friends talking about chicken lovers, which is gay slang for gay men who like underage boys, on your Instagram, he'll just say, oh, we really like chicken, If you say, why are your friends talking about hotards on your Instagram, when you're talking about a baby, and hotard is slang for retarded whore, and you're talking about a baby, he'd just say, oh, I don't know what they're saying, that's not anything to do with me, blah, blah, blah. So they just lie. They absolutely outright lie, and there's absolutely no point in even asking them or talking to them. Right. What we need to do is focus on digging up the evidence. I feel sick. I haven't even managed to watch the Megyn Kelly interview beyond a few minutes or something, because it just sickens me to see these people, and that particular interview reminds me so much. And I know you want to come to us later of the Hampstead case in England, where the father was interviewed by the BBC. So the father was accused of satanic ritual abuse of children. And then, he was painted as the victim and interviewed by the BBC. And if you watch his interview, I asked many different people to watch this, many different very highly perceptive people to watch it and tell me what they thought, who didn't know anything about the backstory. And the vast majority of them said, he looks like he's lying, he looks like an actor. One even said to me, is this like a recreation of the interview? Because it just looks like an actor. So we just see the same patterns over and over again. These highly psychopathic kind of people who have absolutely no remorse. They think what they're doing is funny. They think it's a game. They think we're all stupid. This is how they view us. They view us as absolute morons. They can say anything to us and we'll believe them. And you know what? It's true. Because through the mainstream media, which is basically owned by these people, they can put out any story they want, and we'll believe it. And they're just used to that happening. So, they barely even ruffle a feather at telling another lie to us.
Right. Now, we'll talk about the Hampstead cover-up, and actually I'll play a couple of those sound bites from the children. The children were Alyssa and Gabriel Dearman. And it's a very, very shocking story. Their testimony made global news, and then the cover-up began. And I guess since they've retracted their story, but even the videos of the children retracting their stories looks a little suspect too. I'm going to play a couple of those sound bites in a second, but let's just circle back to Alefantis, because one of the questions I'd have for him if he were even just my neighbor, much less the pizza shop owner here in this case of Pizzagate, I'd say, as it relates to his Instagram, did you see the picture of him laying on the floor covered in, let's say it's pizza sauce, but it could just as easily be blood. That's what it looks like. And he's mostly nude, and he's wearing women's high heels. And then there's a hashtag comment that says #sex. Would that be a fellow you'd want to live next to?
No, of course not. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So sorry, it's horrible. Repeatedly seeing these things, as I said, I don't want to go anywhere near that guy. A lot of these guys, even John Podesta, just looking at him, it's like it makes me want to throw up. And that's probably because I've been doing this research and I've seen the kind of things that he gets up to, and I've seen what his brother gets up to, and I've seen the possible things that he could be involved in. So yeah, it is sickening, and it's almost, I've noticed in myself, and I think other people as well, you actually have to kind of almost cut off your emotions in order to just rationally be able to comprehend what's going on, because otherwise you'll either be too disgusted or too in such a state of disbelief that you wouldn't be able to comprehend it accurately.
Yeah, well, all right. I want to share this with you too before we move off of Pizzagate, and we're going to broaden this conversation out because obviously the pedophile ring and the elite's interests in pedophilia are so much bigger than just the Washington D.C. Pizzagate story. But I want to give a shout out to a channel that's doing a nice job too. This young woman seems very intelligent and lucid. It's the YouTube channel ReallyGraceful, and she shared information that she got from a couple in Washington, D.C. that went to Comet Ping Pong in the attempt to, for themselves, debunk this whole thing. And they had a very, very strange experience there. And upon leaving, they could only conclude that there's more to the story at Comet Ping Pong. They said while they were there,
they said they sat where they could see the entire restaurant. You could see the entrance, and you could see this black curtain at the very back. So they could see who was coming and going the entire time. I asked her if the food was worthy of being on diners, drive-ins, and dives, and she said no, that it was just average food. What was strange that she noticed is that around 20 men, all older, maybe late 60s, early 60s, 50s. They never ate. They went directly to this curtain room, which is, you can see in the picture, there's a curtain, pull back the curtain. They went into that room. Can you see in this picture, there's a camera? She said all the cameras are pointed towards the curtain. While they were sitting and eating dinner, she noticed two girls who came from behind the curtain. They were maybe 12, 13 years old, never saw them with an adult, never saw them with parents, never saw them interact with adults.
And while this couple was there having their food, those men never left. And so then eventually the husband worked up enough courage to ask if he could go, what's behind the curtain? And they said, oh, there's a bar back there. You feel free to go back there. And so they reluctantly went through the black curtain, and there was this old dusty bar, and there was nobody there except one employee who turned and said, what are you guys doing in here? And they said, oh, we just wanted to come check out the bar. And he said, well, the bar's not open. And they said it was like a dusty bar that looked like it really hadn't been in use for a long time. So they turned around and walked back into the main room and hung out for a while longer. And those men, they never saw those men leave. So where did those men go, and what were they doing there? And again, guys, as it relates to Pizzagate and, Jimmy Comet's Instagram page and Comet Ping Pong, this story is so much larger than just that. But there's so many questions surrounding Comet Ping Pong. And did you see that video from Really Graceful? Are you familiar with that at all?
I haven't gotten around to watching any of Really Graceful's videos, but I have spoken with her on Twitter, so I will be catching up on her videos at some point. It's just that there's been so much going on at the moment. So
yeah, well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. More than anything, I just wanted to make reference to that video. I'll try to post a link to it below because it's really powerful testimony, and the story's told in a way where I tend to believe that the information that was conveyed to her is probably true, and I have no reason to disbelieve it. And if that's true, it just suggests that, Tara, we're on the right track, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And across the street at Besta Pizza, in the mainstream media will never share this, their logo used to be a logo that the FBI itself would identify as a pedophile logo, and since Pizzagate broke open, they changed their logo. I mean, does that not alone suggest where there's smoke, there's fire?
Yes, I mean, the fact that, if Besta Pizza was the only one that had a paedophile symbol in the logo, I might say that's a coincidence. But the fact that the store opposite, Terrasol, also had a paedophile symbol on their homepage just makes it extremely unlikely that was an accident. Mm-hmm. And I know that, of course, both of them have said to the mainstream media that, these are symbols for other things, we had no idea it was a paedophile symbol, etc. But I think that the reason the paedophile symbols are as they are is so that there's plausible deniability. So the fact that they say it's not a paedophile symbol really means nothing. You just have to use your own eyes. Does it look like a paedophile symbol to you? Read what the FBI says in that document about how pedophiles use those symbols so that they can attract other pedophiles to network, and how they use them, on social media, on websites, etc. And it just makes a lot of sense that they would be kind of using those logos to indicate that they are pedophiles. Obviously this is all alleged because we can't absolutely prove it, but if you kind of just take a look at some of the videos I've made on this topic, or if you just kind of look up the FBI pedophile symbols and look up those symbols for those particular restaurants, it's kind of hard to deny that that's going on.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that Roberta's Pizza in New York City has advertising for events, a summer solstice party they're holding, specifically one poster that comes to mind, in which the art depicts little skeleton children dancing around a fire, and underfoot is a pentagram. Very satanic in overtone, and evidently the Clintons loved Roberta's Pizza, as some of the mainstream media newspapers were shouting out back in the day. And I just find it very interesting because, again, if we stay with the facts, where there's smoke, there's fire, what's to explain the Clinton Foundation's relationship to Laura Silsby in Haiti, in coming to her rescue to some degree and getting her a defense when she was arrested for trying to traffic 33 children who had parents out of Haiti, and she was caught and jailed. And again, you won't hear that talked about by the mainstream media. Now, as we bridge into the conversation about how this pedophile ring is global in scope, Tara, jump in on any of this, because as you know, and I've covered at length, Jimmy Savile, the former BBC personality, was a well-known pedophile. Even Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols tried to shout it from the rooftops that this guy needed to be, brought to justice. And he paid the price by being banned from BBC for some period of time. These people have connections with the powerful, and it's been said that Jimmy Savile was trafficking children to very powerful elite in London.
Jimmy Savile, far from being a lone predator, seemingly played an active role in supplying children to a network of child abusers in London.
And so that brings us to this story of Alyssa and Gabriel Dearman and the Hampstead cover-up. Now, I just want to give people a little background here before I play these sound bites. Alyssa and Gabriel are brother and sister. Alyssa is 9 and Gabriel is 8. They are the children of an English father and Russian mother and have lived in the Hampstead area of London, Jimmy Savile trafficking children to London, for most of their lives. Hampstead is an upmarket area of London that has more millionaires within its boundaries than any other area of the United Kingdom. The children's mother was formerly married to a Mr. Draper, whom she met and married in Russia, and with whom she has one son, James. Alyssa and Gabriel's father is Richard Dearman. The children refer to him as Ricky, by the way. He and the former Mrs. Draper are now separated.
Witness statement by Ella Draper from 21st of March 2015. I, Ella Draper, mother of Alyssa Gariva Dearman, age 9, and Gabriel Gariv Dearman, age 8, hereby give this witness statement under the Criminal Law Act 1967 in the public interests in matters of great public importance to expose serious crimes of satanic ritual abuse, including rape, sodomy, murder, and cannibalism committed against infants and children in churches and primary schools in the UK.
If I may, let me just play this soundbite. I'm going to play one from Alyssa, and then I'll play one from Gabriel, and then we can just talk about this case before we move on.
So you live with your mum?
Yes.
And do you ever get to see your dad, do you?
My dad, Ricky.
Ricky, do you ever get to see him?
Every two Saturdays, but actually, in fact, he lies to my mum, and he says that he just sees us every 2 Saturdays.
And do you see him every 2 Saturdays?
Orders.
Okay. So do you see him every 2 Saturdays?
Nope. We see him every single day.
Every single day? And how do you do
school, that? He comes to our school.
Oh, does he? And what does he do at the school?
He does sex to us. He kills babies there.
Right.
We eat babies. We drink their blood.
Okay.
Because this is how we do it. So like on Wednesdays is the most special, busiest day, special day.
Okay. We'll take it little bit by little bit. So you say your dad comes to your school every day.
Yes.
What does that mean? He comes to your school every day.
So that means he comes like whenever we have school on Saturdays. He comes and sees us there.
Whereabouts does he come and see you?
My school, Christchurch Primary School.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's the area we live next to Christchurch Primary School.
Do you want to jump in before I play this soundbite from her brother? I just find it very compelling that she speaks so articulately and so matter-of-factly, you know. No, he comes and sees us every single day. Your thoughts on that before I play a soundbite from Gabriel?
Well, what I want people to know when they listen to this is that it's a policeman who is interviewing her and interviewing the children in, you know, a private room with cameras and everything. And a lot of people have criticized the policeman for saying, like, why is he acting so stupid? You know, he's doing his job actually really well. What he's trying to do is he's trying to collect evidence. And how you collect evidence when you're interviewing is you ensure that everything is said by the subject, one being interviewed, and not by you, and that you are not making any kind of, you're not implying anything or putting any words in their mouth. So that's why he's coaxing her in a way to get her to say more and more without influencing what she's saying. So he's doing a great job, and I know that he might come across to the average person might come across as he's just really stupid and hasn't got a clue what she's talking about, but actually he's purposely speaking in that way in an attempt to get her to say what she needs to say in order for there to be evidence against the father or any other people involved.
Right. And I'll play this soundbite from Gabriel. And I think what's shocking about these soundbites is the children speak about these things as though they are just everyday events in life. And again, she was 9 and the brother was 8 years old when these testimonies were recorded. And I guess if children are brought up this way, you know, from their earliest memories, it would become normal to them to some degree, and maybe that's why they can speak so matter-of-factly about these things. Okay, this is testimony from Gabriel.
Since when I was 5 years old.
And how old are you now?
I'm 8 years old.
So for 3 years you've been going to the school?
No, yeah, for 3 years, yeah.
Okay. So you're having the party, and then what's happened at the end of the party?
My dad kills babies and he eats the meat.
Okay, well, let's just talk about the party day, okay? So, the party, what was the party like?
I don't like the party.
Why not?
They touch me.
Who?
They kick me. My front privates, they hurt me. So when they stick a big plaster really in my bottom, and when it bleeds, if I cry, he like, do you know those spaghetti spoons, like those metal ones? If I cry, he hits me on the head with it.
Okay.
But if I cry more, he hits me again. But if I cry more, the nurse teacher, Miss Marden, she injects me, and a sleeping injection on my neck, and then I fell asleep straight away.
Okay. What I'd like to go about, I just want to talk about just the party day. So I don't want to hear about anything else other than that day. Okay. So all the stuff that's happened on different days, we will talk about, I promise, but not until after we've spoken about the party day. Exactly. Perfect. So you're at the party. You said you didn't really like the party.
No, I hate it.
Why do you hate the party?
They hit me. They do all kind of stuff, and I'm a
Who's
vegan.
They?
I'm a
Who's
vegan. What? Who's that?
You said they hit me. Who's they? Who hit you?
My dad, all the teachers, my dad's friends.
And where did they
And
hit
also
you?
the parents do it too.
You know, I'll pause it there because obviously we could just watch this entire thing. It's incredibly captivating because this little boy continues to repeat his story. No matter how many times he's asked, he'll just restate it. And I have 4 children, and the littlest now is 10. I mean, I think he's being very candid and very honest. And even if, as charges have been made, his mother coached him, and this was all to ensnare the father and make the father look terrible, I can tell you that there is no amount of coaching that I could do with any of my kids that would allow them to speak to a policeman on camera and come across in a 2.5-hour interview so candid, so natural, and so honest about something about which they were lying. Your thoughts on the charges that these children made the whole thing up?
Okay, so I've also watched the part of these interviews where the children retract their statements, and this comes after they have been in foster care. So they're put in foster care by the social services and the police, and then they retract their statements. And when you watch the videos where they're retracting their statements, they both look extremely awkward and nervous. You know, their body language changes dramatically. And the question really is, are they acting in this really awkward, nervous way because they are admitting that they lied previously? Or are they acting in this awkward, nervous way because they're afraid of the consequences if he doesn't believe what they're telling them now?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer I have is I don't know. Like, I've asked people who are trained at observing body language what they think of the situation, and we just have not been able to come to a conclusion in regards to what's happening with the children. Having watched the videos of them giving the accusations, it's quite difficult to believe that they were coached in this, because it literally would have taken like an extraordinary amount of effort and repeated drilling and syncing up nuances such as you wouldn't, because in one part he says that he was forced to snort white powder off his hand that his dad gave him, which is obviously cocaine. So whoever coached him would have had to say, so you had to snort white powder in a little mountain ridge shape,
right,
because this is how he describes that.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't an adult probably say, oh, you snorted a line of cocaine or something?
Right.
You know, so they're using this kind of babyish language to describe adult things, and whoever had coached them would have had to think up all of this babyish language to teach them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And, they both say they did sex to me. They didn't have sex with me. They're speaking in a way that, you would expect a child to speak about these things. And I would just say this as it relates to, okay, what do we know about the global elite pedophile ring? What do we know about Jimmy Savile trafficking children to elites in London? What do we know, like, in terms of facts? What do you think is more likely? Is it more likely that Richard Dearman, known as Ricky to the children, is a pedophile who is abusing his children and is involved in pedophilia in London, or that the children made all this up because of coaching from the mom? Because what I'll read to you from SOT.net is this. According to Miss Draper, Mr. Dearman was sexually deviant, abusive, and behaved violently towards her and the children during their relationship. Mr. Dearman was eventually asked to leave the family home in 2007. Over the next few years, however, he continued to stalk the children, showing up at their school or at the store, and on several occasions breaking into Miss Draper's home between 2006 and 2010. The police were called out 5 times, and 3 reports were filed over Mr. Dearman's abuse. Again, where there's smoke, there's fire. Why do you think the mainstream media is so interested in trying to dissipate, discredit, and debunk these stories? Why do you think the mainstream media won't get with us on our side and investigate one of the biggest horrors in human history, which is pedophilia, and the fact that pedophilia seems to be reaching to the highest ranks of power?
I suspect that the mainstream media and all of the faces of the mainstream media are owned and run by people who are involved in this. And we have very good reason to believe this, of course, with Jimmy Savile. People repeatedly made complaints to the BBC. One girl was molested on stage by Jimmy Savile with the cameras rolling. And no one would press any charges, no police. People would complain for police, they just wouldn't press charges against him. People would complain to the head of BBC. just said he wasn't interested in hearing about it. Someone told the head of a BBC, Jimmy Savile is raping a child in his dressing room, or his green room, whatever you call it. And the head of the BBC just said, well, that's Jimmy.
Is that right? I hadn't heard that. Oh my God! Well,
this is in the Independent. Yeah, I posted it on my website in an article about the BBC. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're seeing. So to me, it just kind of seems pretty obvious that this is going on, and the media is covering it up. And I mean, even the BBC posted an article in 2015 that there is a child trafficking, child exploitation epidemic in the United States, and they had someone from the FBI on in a nice video to talk all about it. And 1 year later, they're saying that we're all crazy for suspecting that there's one going on.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know if you'd heard this. I've reported about this because I think it's stunning. And again, it's just coincidental. But if we look to the mainstream media to help and be allied with us in these investigations, we can't look to people like Jake Tapper, because I think this is a massive coincidence, if nothing else. Jake Tapper's wife, Jennifer, told the Washingtonian a year ago, she was interviewed by the Washingtonian, and she told them that her favorite date night restaurant is Buck's Hunting and Fishing, which is in that same area as...
I think it's owned by James Alefantis, isn't it?
I believe,
or maybe it's just next door, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I believe you're right. I think maybe it is owned by him, or there's a co-ownership. You're right. And then she says her favorite family restaurant is Comet Ping Pong. This is a year before Pizzagate. Like, don't you find I've been to Washington, D.C., there's innumerable wonderful restaurants, like countless. What are the chances that her favorite restaurant to take the kids to would be Comet Ping Pong? And that really drives home the point, too. How is James Alefantis, in that Megyn Kelly interview, they soft pedal him as just a pizza shop owner, when he's been named as one of the top 50 most powerful people in Washington, D.C.? Yeah. Why would he be named as a powerful person?
That means he's more powerful than hundreds of actual politicians and hundreds of lawmakers and, hundreds of media personalities. He's more powerful than all of them, and they describe him as this poor little pizza shop owner. This poor little pizza shop owner who happens to host fundraisers for Hillary Clinton and Obama. This poor little pizza shop owner who gets checks for tens of thousands of dollars a go from Media Matters to send them catering. So there's something really odd going on here, and it really does not add up, and it deserves our investigation, and there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't present the evidence that we find surrounding this.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, I know we're running short on time here, so before I let you go, I'm going to just ask you a couple more things, and I'll play one more soundbite, and we'll round this conversation out. Have you seen the creepy videos, any of the footage of Joe Biden interacting with families and little children at these ceremonial events at the state capitol in Washington? Have you seen any of the creepy Joe Biden footage?
Oh, yeah, I actually posted some on my website. Sorry, I posted some on my channel. And yeah, everyone who watches it is just like, oh my God, what is he doing? Get away from those kids. Like, that girl looks so uncomfortable. I don't think there's really any good explanation for why he is acting this way around children. In one clip, he appears to be fondling a girl's breast,
Mm-hmm.
He's constantly playing with their hair. He always, in all of these photo shoots, he always gets a girl to stand in front of him. And the expression on their faces, it's like they go from smiling to the camera to looking really worried. And all I can think is that he's pushing something into their back or something while he's standing behind them, and they're freaked out. So, yeah, it's anyone who watches this, you'll see that there's something up with Joe Biden, and this guy is the Vice President of the United States of America. He really should not be acting like this at all, and it's absolutely unacceptable. He's got away with it so long.
Yeah, and he always likes to whisper in their ears, and some strange things have been caught on tape.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, nice to see you guys. Thank you. See you back home, I hope.
Tara, I think the point of this conversation before, as we round it out, is that the Pizzagate story is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're not going to let the mainstream media take us off track by trying to malign us as being providers of fake news. We're providers of real news, doing real research, and there's so many excellent researchers out there trying to get truth out. I want to just play this clip from Ryan Dawson. There's sexual predators in government all over the planet, and then he cites some examples as he paints the picture that the sexual predator and child pedophilia problem is much more global in scope than just Pizzagate.
But if you want to talk about pedophilia and child porn, rape, torture, and sex trafficking in government, there's plenty of that without the Podesta emails. It's basically every single level of government. The DEA, the DHS, Customs, the State Department, ICE, the Navy, the BIA, the Department of Agriculture, the Forest Reserve, the Department of Energy, police, the FBI, the CIA, the Pentagon, especially the Department of Homeland Security. And the State Department. It's in everything. I know those flashed up quickly. I'm going to go over some of those stories in detail. Some of you might remember about 2 years ago, a fella named Jesse Loskarn, who killed himself when he was getting convicted of having child pornography tapes where children were tortured and raped, like infants I'm talking about, on film, and he was selling these. This guy was the chief of staff for Tennessee Senator Lamar Alexander. He killed himself. Good riddance. But they weren't really interested in investigating that further.
You know, before I let you go, just final thoughts on this, Tara. Do you believe, as I do, that this is spiritual in scope? Because I just wonder how it can be that so many people in government, in powerful positions, could be wired this way. Statistically, I don't even think it's possible. It seems like too big an anomaly. How is this happening? Why is this happening? And why are there so many people in government that seem to be perfectly willing to engage in this behavior? Your thoughts?
That is the question. Yeah, that is exactly the question. But I think we're all asking. And it really does make you wonder what's going on behind, not just behind the scenes, but, you know, what has really been hidden from us. Is it a larger spiritual reality that we're unaware of? We do know that they're constantly pushing atheism in universities and schools. I was subjected to that myself. And yeah, constantly ridiculing people for suggesting any kind of paranormal or psychic phenomena could possibly exist, you know. So just the fact that they're always trying to ridicule and make fun of people who suggest these things actually makes me wonder, you know, perhaps these things are correct. But I don't have evidence, you know, to say that. So I just keep an open mind about that and keep looking, really.
Well, I definitely think they're mainstreaming deviance. You know, we know about the Department of Justice moving to normalize, I believe it was 10 perversions, according to Tom DeLay.
Well, we've already found a secret memo coming out of the Justice Department. They're now going to go after 12 new perversions, things like bestiality, polygamy, having sex with little boys.
And again, if we look at that Roberta's Pizza, if we look at so much of the artwork associated with these bands that play at these pizza joints and the pizza joint advertising themselves, oftentimes we see pentagrams. So I don't know when it became acceptable to openly display pentagrams for the advertising of family restaurants or bands playing at family restaurants. But again, the mainstream media won't talk about that. They won't talk about the satanic component to any of this, which is why I mentioned the spiritual warfare, the spiritual component, because I believe that we are engaged in spiritual warfare and those aligned against us are on the other team. They're on the pentagram team.
Yeah, I mean, when you see evil, you know what good is. That's how I feel at the moment, because, after kind of coming to terms with the fact that this stuff exists, it makes you realize what side you want to be on. And yeah, I think they've kept us in the dark. I think they love keeping people thinking that nothing matters, everything's relative, there's no such thing as right or wrong, blah, blah, blah. And this kind of stuff wakes you up. So that's part of why I'm sharing it as well.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people saying that they are much more interested in spirituality after they've been exposed to this stuff.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head early in the interview when you mentioned this phrase I'd never heard of, duper's delight. These people are into it, man. They love hurting children, and they love getting away with it, and it's just absolutely stunning. I think it's the most important story that we can talk about and cover because the mainstream Mockingbird lying horror media will not do it. Can you please tell people how to get to your YouTube channel, because I think you deserve a lot more subscribers.
Oh, thank you. Well, I try to direct people to my website, which is realitycalls.co, just because I don't know how long YouTube is going to let me stay on YouTube. So I'm trying to, I already, about a certain number of my videos aren't even posted to YouTube. I just upload them to another site and then post them onto my website, because I just know they're going to get banned from YouTube anyway. So that's the best place to find me. I'm also on Twitter, I'm on Gab, and I'm on minds.com, which is it's like a version of Facebook, except that it's pro freedom of speech, pro privacy. And much better than Facebook. I recommend that as well.
Cool. All right. Very cool. Tara from Reality Calls has been our guest. I can't thank you enough for giving us an hour of your time, Tara. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to join you anytime.
All right. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Check us out at sgtreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com for real news 24/7. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Ephesians 5:11. It says this: take no part in unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. And interestingly, in verse 12, it says, for it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret.